All right, this video, the first part at least, we'll just look at how we could change the color of our touch sprite. So we remember back before in the designer block, designer's page, we had red, green, and blue here. And so at the moment it's defaulting to black, but we want to give the user the choice, okay, of changing the color up here. And so we have to go back to the blocks. And basically what we want to do is say grab the button here. Okay, and so basically we follow the same idea. When we click or we press, so click is kind of press the red button, what are we going to do? Okay, well, we want to set the color. All right, and so I think if you go back under here, you can set red button. That always just goes to the red button. So I need to find, actually it's under the canvas where we can set the color there. So let's just see here. So all the properties are down below. Oh, here we are in the green. And so not the background color, not the image, not the font size. We want the paint color. Okay, so we're going to set the paint color, and then you can see there's a 2. So when they click the red button, what's it going to do? Well, it's going to set the canvas's paint color to, and then we just have to find the colors here. And I think, there it is, colors. And we'll just grab a red. Okay, so basically when we click the red button, we want it to paint the color, or turn the paint color to red. Okay, now obviously we need to do that for the other 3. And so instead of doing the same procedure, you can always copy, Control V. So if I click on this and then hopefully Control V, we've got another one. Now the warning sign there is pricing. There's a duplicate. Click on it, duplicate, and that's okay. We'll change it in a second. And we might as well do the other one while we're at it. So we've got all 3 here. Now it's very easy to change these up, especially when we've changed the names of them. Okay, green button. So, right, so number 2 or whatever makes it much easier. And then actually if you click on this little guy, it brings up a color little thing. So you can actually choose whatever color of green you want. Okay, and then we'll make this one the blue button. And we'll set that to a blue. All right, so there's your 3 colors. So you should be able to go back now, try your app, and those buttons should work so that for your circles and or your lines, they should be changing color. So to change the dot size, we created 2 buttons, big and small. So we're going to have a big dot and a small dot. All right. Now, what influenced or what set the size originally? Well, what set the size originally was this radius that was set to 5. So we have to somehow be able to manipulate this, to change it. And the way we're going to do that is through a variable. And specifically, we're going to use a global variable. And I don't want to get into too much detail here, but a global variable is a type of variable that you can use in sort of any function. So it sort of exists outside of the functions, but then can be used by any function. There's something called a local variable, which kind of these X and Y values are, and they are localized and just used inside this function, in this event handler, and they don't actually come out of the event handler unless you specifically returned them. Okay, but a global variable can sort of be used by any event handler, anything here. Now, one other thing that we can do, just to keep things, I mean, you can always move things around. You can, I think, zoom out and zoom in as well with these, but you can also collapse a block, and it just makes it smaller. Okay, so sometimes you need to physically organize your workspace here, and that's one way to keep things a little bit more organized here. So what we're going to do is just worrying about the radius here. So I'm going to keep this one up, and I'm going to bring in 2 things. We're going to touch or sort of click on those 2 buttons. So our big button. So when big button's clicked, actually, I'll just bring that one in because we can just duplicate it because it's going to be very similar. Now, what we want to do obviously is change the size. Okay, so when we click on that, we're going to have to go back to the canvas and we want to create, we want to change the dot size. Now, one way we could do it is try to go into the canvas and change it. But the big trouble is right here, we need to change this value. So what we're actually going to do is create a, like I was saying before, a global variable. Now variables are here, and we can initialize a global variable, and so that's what we'll do, is we're just going to set a initialize a global variable, and you can give it any name you want. And so instead of radius, because I think that might get confusing, we'll call it dot size. Okay, so the dot size we're going to set a value to, and we've got to give it a value. So I'm going to go back to math and put a value in there. Now we're going to do the big button. So let's set that to, let's set that to, let's set it to its default value. And so its default value would be 2. Okay, good. Now what we want to do is that when we click the big button, we want to set the dot size to a bigger value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, Control C and Control V, and I'm just going to grab it. Now you can see that doesn't quite work. So what I have to do is when you click, what it has to be is it has to be a set dot size. So sorry, I'm going to delete that because that was my fault. So let's just see here. So we've got our global variable now. I just have to find it. Now where did that go? We've created our variables. So let's just go back to variables here. Okay, I think we just grabbed this. Set to, so when we do that, we set to, we have to choose it. Global dot size, there we go. And in our number, I'm going to copy that part. So when we click on the big one, 8. Okay, we're going to set that to a value of 8. So just to reiterate what I did there, we created the variable, okay, gave it a name, dot size, and we gave it an initial value of 2, okay, and then I had to go back to variables because we need to set that variable. So I dragged that out and chose the variable, and there was only one because we've only have one global variable that we could do, and set that value to 8. Good. So there's our big button, and then our small button, I'm just going to copy and paste. Again, we get that duplicate problem, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is set the small button, okay, set the global size, and we'll just change that value to 2. Back to 2, okay? So we're going to initialize it, set it to 2 at the start. When you click big, it becomes big at 8, and then when you click small, it goes back to the original size. Now there's one thing that we need to do, okay? And so if you tried this, it wouldn't work. And what do you think the issue is? Give you a second to think about it. Should have the Jeopardy music play. So the trouble is, these buttons, yeah, they work. Okay, they would change this dot size to 8 and 2 and, you know, back and forth. However, in our canvas touch, when we're drawing that circle, we haven't actually done anything here. Okay, this is still going to be 5 regardless. So we actually have to get rid of this little 5, and you can throw it in the garbage can here. Okay, and we have to put it in so that the radius is equal to this dot size variable. So what I just need to do here is look at my variables again, and I believe we just need to get that variable, just like we got the x and y values. So now it says there's an error because it doesn't know what value it is. We click on it, and we could grab any of these, okay, but it doesn't make any sense except for the dot size, okay? So this will actually grab the dot size there. Good. So now you should be able to go back, run this, it should be able to change colors, and the dot size should also be able to change. So you should be able to alternate between large and small. Now later on, I think what we'll do is talk about how to do a slider so that you could have a continuous, you know, sort of change in the size. But for now, we've got those buttons there. All right, try that out, see how it works, and we're getting closer to finishing up our app here.